Hello and welcome to your yoga class. My name is Jenny. This is a restore class, so it's going to be a slowed down pace. We're going to be really getting into some deeper stretches. So we're going to be holding these stretches for a bit longer than in a normal flow class. And to support the body in these different poses, we're going to bring in props. So, props you can use. Blocks, yoga-specific blocks are great. If you have a couple of these, grab them. If not, you can use a hardcover book or anything that you may have around the house that's similar size and shape that's going to be solid, so you can put some weight on it. This is going to be good. As you can see, I like to sit on it. It's good to fill in some space. So one or two kind of block-ish shape props. Blankets of various sizes. You can see I have one blanket laid out on my mat for a little extra cushion. And then having, one or two blankets of various sizes can be nice. Something to wrap up in Shavasana. Also something to bring in a little lift, a little cushion, a little support at times. If you have a bolster, this is a yoga-specific prop. Bolster or meditation cushions, go ahead and grab some of those. If you don't, you can use couch cushions, you can use pillows, stacks of pillows. You can also get a bigger, thicker blanket to kind of create something about this size and shape. We are going to be utilizing this. And then any other, pillows, blankets, anything that you would need if you want to use a strap. I don't have anything specific planned for straps, but that can be a nice addition. Anything you would want for your Shavasana, maybe a nice eye mask or something cozy to wrap up in. So take a moment to gather your props. And then for class tonight, or if you're not doing this live, whatever time of day that you are doing this, what I want to focus on is just getting centered. So this can mean a lot of different things to different people. So let it be open to interpretation. I'll be working us through a few different ways to connect to center, to kind of see where are you feeling centered, where can you kind of orient. And so in each pose that we get into, I'm going to ask you to feel into where you feel centered. And I'll give various descriptions of that because everyone is going to be connecting to center a little bit different. So pretty simple in concept, and this is a great thing to do. Just having this tool in your toolkit of being able to ground yourself and center yourself can be really beneficial, of course, on your yoga mat. That's one of the goals of yoga, is to become centered, become grounded, to come into the present moment. But we can take this off of our yoga mat, and in days when we're feeling hectic, when something crazy happens, when we're stuck in traffic, when we're feeling like we're being pulled in a million different directions, just taking a moment to find our center, to find where in my body do I feel balanced? Where do I feel a sense of equilibrium? Where can I connect to that either feels good or just feels neutral? So keep that in mind as we move through our practice. I will try to give different variations in each pose, and definitely listen to your body. Definitely use props to support you in ways that feel good, even if it's not in ways that I describe. I try to give as many options and as many different ways to support yourself as you can, but this is also your practice, so feel free to explore, feel free to get curious, and if I lead you into a position that just isn't feeling right for you, switch it up, do something else. I'm here to keep you present, keep you grounded, keep you connected, and give you safe parameters to explore your practice. But the exploration's up to you and how you want this practice to unfold. You're in the driver's seat, so take charge of that. Find some autonomy within your practice. So let's go ahead and start. So once you've gathered all of your props, we'll start either, I will say, so lying down on the back. So either in an active rest with the feet planted on the floor, knees bent, or lying flat, maybe with some props underneath the knees or something supporting you. So active rest is lying on the back, And knees bent, feet planted on the ground. Or you could take a supported kind of shavasana, bringing in, props underneath the knees. I'll leave that blanket there for some contrast since everything I've got is black. And then just notice where the hands want to land. Maybe they come to the belly, maybe one hand to the heart, one hand to the belly. Maybe they open up, maybe they extend out into a T or alongside the body. Just kind of notice where they naturally want to fall. Feel free to, make any adjustments, get any wiggles out. We do want to have the spine, pretty straight here. So we want the head to be in line with the shoulders so that the neck is an extension of the length in the spine. If it would feel good too, you could plant the feet, lift the hips, and scoop the tailbone down. So you're sending the tailbone in between the hips or in between the ankles, and then setting back down. That just kind of neutralizes through the low back. That might bring a nice little sense of relief, especially if you tend to have some compression in the low back or carry your weight there. I definitely do, so that's a nice little release for me. And the props can also help with that as well, a little support underneath the knees or with the knees bent. So take a moment here to kind of just orient yourself. So, we will bring a little awareness to our external environment, just again for that sense of orientation. So in any home practice, there's going to be distractions. You might get noises from around my apartment. I live in a pretty busy area of town, so there's buses and traffic lights and people and noisy radiators and neighbors playing music, and maybe you're experiencing something similar. Maybe you share your home with family or partner or roommates, pets. So there tend to be a lot of distractions in any home practice. So while we do want to be aware of those things, kind of let them be a part of the experience, we don't want them to be a distraction. So allow yourself a moment to orient with your external environment, just enough to feel settled and to feel maybe a little more grounded and a little more present, but not so much that you start to kind of nitpick like, oh, I really need to vacuum the floor, or, start planning what you're going to have for dinner. And just for a moment, that external orientation, and then we're going to really start to bring our awareness inward. You're welcome to close the eyes if that feels safe, or you can soften the gaze. If you have ceiling lights and they're on, it might be nice to dim them or turn them down. Since we're lying on the back, it makes it a little less harsh on the eyes. I of course need mine on for lighting. Let's take a moment to start to find your breath. You're welcome to let a sigh out of the mouth at any point if that would feel good. In your observation of the breath, you may have naturally started to lengthen or deepen the breath. And if you'd like to bring a little more intention into that, try to find a nice, even, lengthy inhale, a steady exhale, trying to breathe deep into the belly, really, using the full capacity of those lungs to get as much air as you can on the inhale and release as much carbon dioxide out on the exhale. And just take a moment to notice maybe somewhere in the body where you feel centered. Where you feel a sense of equilibrium, a sense of balance, or maybe just a sense of density. Now we might gravitate towards, somewhere in the center of our body, the belly, the core, the heart. Maybe it is somewhere in the torso, maybe it's down in the hips, maybe it's up in the neck, but it could be in the head and the limbs. There's no right or wrong answer here of where you feel centered right now. And if that idea of centered or that concept of equilibrium in the body, if that is foreign to you, or if nothing is, if you're not feeling that sensation, another way to view it is to feel into somewhere in the body that feels either pleasant, that feels good, or that just feels neutral. In trauma-informed yoga and other teachings, this is called resource. So finding your resource that you can come back to, you can reconnect to throughout our practice. Or if things start to feel overwhelming, if a lot of things come up for you, if you find yourself really distracted, just take a moment to come back to resource, to come back to center. So just observe, feel into the body, finding a place that feels centered, and that feels neutral. As we move through our practice, I'll keep asking you to check back in with that idea, and maybe it stays in the same position in the body, or maybe it's a different part of the body throughout our practice, and that is perfect. There's no right or wrong answer here. It's just you having the experience with your body. Awesome work. Just a few more rounds of breath here, getting nice and grounded, finding and connecting to our center. Feeling the support of the ground holding us here in this space. Feeling the weight of gravity heavy on the body. Maybe allowing gravity to kind of help us find our center where we feel, the most dense or the most connected. Awesome work. So as you feel ready, if you have any props supporting the feet, go ahead and move the legs, go ahead and move those off to the side. We're going to stay lying on the back here for a moment, and we're going to bring the bottoms of the feet to touch, and we're going to let the knees drop open. And you can play with the position of the heels. The further away the heels are from the root, from the hips, the more gentle this opening in the hips is going to be, maybe a little more gentle on the low back. And then the closer you draw those heels in towards the root, the more intense this opening is going to be. So know that we're not looking for the most intense sensation here, all right? We're just looking to find sensation. We're looking to find, some stretching, some opening in the hips and the inner thighs. But we're not looking to send it to the extreme. So not even 100% of your flexibility here, maybe going to about 70-80%. Awesome work. Now we'll eventually hold this for a moment, but before we do, I kind of just want to bring a little movement in. So nice and slow, you may want to bring a little separation of the feet so that there's some space for the feet to rotate to the ground. But nice and slow, on an inhale, just start to draw the knees towards each other, closing the knees, planting the feet on the ground. And then on an exhale, nice and slow, allowing the knees to open back up. Just as wide as feels okay. Again, it doesn't have to come to 100% of your flexibility. And then we'll just repeat this, taking it nice and slow, drawing the knees up towards center on an inhale.
And on the exhale, opening the knees. So we're taking this nice and slow. Resist the urge to speed up, to go fast, because of course we can bring the knees, we can use momentum to throw them around. We can easily move them, but we want to take it nice and slow, maybe even engaging in the feet. So maybe pressing into the outsides of the feet as the thighs start to internally rotate, start to come in towards each other. And then pressing down into the feet, the balls and the outer edges of the feet as you open the knees up to either side. And hands can be doing whatever feels good here on the belly, on the heart, opening up. You could even tuck the shoulder blades underneath, getting a little more opening in the chest if that feels good here. We're just taking it nice and slow, linking the breath with the movements. Inhaling to draw the knees up and together. And exhale, dropping the knees wide and apart. Noticing how this movement is feeling in the low back. How it's feeling in the glutes, above the booty, and the outer hips. Awesome work. When you're ready, we're going to bring the knees up together, and then we're going to walk the feet out a little wider than hip distance. Now we're going to keep playing with the opening and closing of the knees, but we're going to let the knees kind of follow each other, play a little follow the leader. So with the feet wider than hip distance, feet planted on the ground, on an inhale, just drop both knees over towards the right. Keep the shoulders connected to the ground. That left hip will raise. There'll be a slight twist. And then exhale, bring the knees back up towards center. Inhale, drop the knees over towards the left. That right hip bone will lift. Keep the shoulders on the ground. And exhale, knees back up towards center. So now this is where we will repeat this nice, slow windshield wiper. And it might take a little bit of activation, maybe some pressing into the outsides and bottoms of the feet as you move. And we're not looking so much for such a big twist in the spine. This will create a twist as the knees drop side to side. Definitely don't feel like you need to take the knees all the way down to the ground. Again, only come to maybe 80% of your flexibility here. Just notice how this feels. For me, I kind of feel like each time my low back just loosens up just a little bit more. I get sensation in the outer leg, up into the glute. And just nice, slow, gentle movements. So again, we are trying to keep the shoulder blades connected to the earth so that we've got that nice square base in the shoulders. The nice gentle twist as the hips move side to side, as the pelvis, what do you call that, kind of torques a little bit. If this side to side movement is feeling awesome, continue with that, if you like to settle into some stillness, then the next time you find your knees dropping over towards the right, let's pause there and hold it. Now, depending on where, when you feel some natural resistance, pause there and kind of notice, where the legs are hovering. If, gravity is doing its job really well here and it's a little too intense, feel free to fill in any space between the legs, the knees, and the ground with props. You can bring in pillows, blankets, blocks, anything like that to just kind of fill in the space so that the legs can release a little bit more. They just kind of just bring the ground closer. Again, the shoulders are staying connected to the earth. So it may be tempting to raise the left shoulder so that you can get the knees further towards the ground. And we want to avoid that. We don't want to force the body. So keep the shoulders squared, keep both shoulder blades planted on the earth, and just bring the ground closer, bring the ground to you. About 3 more rounds of breath just on this side. Then when you're ready, we'll start to draw the knees back up towards center, and we will drop them over towards the left. If a few rounds of windshield wiper to kind of reset between sides would feel good here, feel free to take that. And then when you're ready, we'll just let the knees drop all the way over towards the left. Then pause when you feel some natural resistance. Don't feel like you need to force the knees, and the legs to the ground. Keep the shoulders connected to the earth, and then fill in the space. Bring the ground up to you with the use of props. You can see I've got my 2 blankets folded up into little balls, just supporting my knees. So that we can, the idea behind that is, give the skeleton a bit of a rest and really allow the legs to relax, to release. Finding that sensation in the hips, maybe again into the outer thigh, the outer glute, maybe up into the low back. Maybe feeling it on the inner thigh, inner glute of the left leg. And again, know that resource is always available for you. So you can always connect back to center. Connect back to a place in your body that feels grounded, that feels connected, or that feels dense. It may feel pleasant, or it may just feel neutral. A few more rounds of breath on this side. Beautiful work. When you feel ready, start to raise the knees back up towards center. If a few more rounds to reset would feel good, take that. If not, maybe draw the knees up towards the chest. Ooh, yeah, that feels good. Finding a lengthening through the low back, so extending the tailbone down. You could raise the head up towards the knees if that feels good. You could wrap the arms around, giving yourself a little squeeze. Some rocking side to side might feel awesome here. then when you're ready, just rock onto one side and press your way up. I'm going to switch things out a little bit here. Coming into a wide-legged forward fold. So what I'm going to suggest is bringing in a blanket, a towel, a small pillow, something that's going to give you, an inch or two lift. And actually, I'm going to grab a pillow to sit on so I can use my blankets as props. So let's see which does best. 1 or 2 pillows. So it just gives this little lift in the hips so that it creates more space. Now you may want to turn sideways on your mat, especially if you're practicing on a hardwood floor, because as we open up the legs, for me, I have really bony heels. It's a weird thing. But it doesn't feel good to put my heels directly on like a hardwood floor. So I like to try to position myself where I can keep my heels on the mat. So we're gonna be spreading the legs out wide. And this one's tough for me. As for a lot of us, splits is not a natural position for us. We've got a lot of forward movement in our lives, not a lot of opening. So we're going to take the legs wide. And again, you don't have to come to 100%. Don't feel like you have to, really force it here. So you can see this lift, that, from sitting on the cushion. It's created a little more space for me to sit a little taller. And then I'm going to use my blankets here to bring support underneath the knees. So we don't need to have the legs completely straight. The knees don't need to be locked out. We're just getting this nice opening here. And then this is where a bolster or some sort of stack of pillows or cushions might come in handy. You can even, bring in a stack of different props. And what we're going to do is create something that we can fold forward onto. So I'm going to kind of play around here. So with the legs extended, we're going to lengthen up nice and tall, and then we're going to slowly start to bow it forward. And use your props to catch you in whatever way. I'm trying to see what the best setup for me is here with the bolster, because this is an area for me where I am tighter. So, some people can spread their legs all the way out. They can fold all the way forward. That's not me. And in my experience, outside of, a yoga class, not many people can do that. And even those people in yoga who can do that, they tend to be genetically predispositioned towards that. They tend to be a little more hypermobile, or during their formative years participated in activities that included a lot of emphasis on flexibility, whether that's gymnastics or dance or cheer or, yoga or anything else that, requires a lot of flexibility. So work with what you got. We're finding our forward fold, and what we want to be able to do is to release all the way down so that we can find some support here. But I need a different collaboration of props because I can't quite, it's forcing me to come forward. Aha, here we go. So I was worried about finding some support for my head, but I'm not going to worry about that. So you can see I've just kind of set this up. Actually, I can turn this sideways. So that I just brought the ground closer so that I can fold forward and rest my forearms on the ground and bring in some support so that I'm not just hanging out here. I'm not having to hold myself up, but I can bring in that support like I, have that flexibility while I work on finding a little more opening here. So if you do have, more props you can stack up to be able to rest the head. I guess I could take this if I wanted to bring a little release for the head and neck.
And again, we're working with about 80% of our flexibility here. So don't worry about folding all the way forward, or that's kind of a starting line, because as we hold it longer, there's gonna be, gravity is gonna work. There might be a little release. There might be a more space created in the body. So, we'll eventually get a little deeper and deeper into the pose, which is why we don't want to start at 100%. If we start at our 100% flexibility, then as we go deeper, it's going to take us too deep and we're going to be doing more harm than good. So tune into the body. I'm definitely getting a lot of sensation in my inner hips, my inner thighs, and my outer glutes, as well as in my low back. We want to be able to find a little release through the head and neck. So whether that is, resting the head on a prop, or whether it's just dropping the chin down towards the chest, letting it hang heavy, find a softening in the shoulders. Maybe even rolling the head side to side, shaking it yes and no, if that would help to find a little release. And then here in this forward fold with the legs extended, see if you can, where you feel centered. See where you feel most connected. Or a place where you feel maybe a little more density. Or that resource, a place in the body that feels pleasant or feels neutral. Again, it may be the same as when we checked in at the beginning of class. It may have shifted, it may have changed, it may have moved. No right or wrong answer here. Well, they're all right answers, no wrong answer. No wrong way to experience this. And pay attention, because as I said, the longer we hold the pose, the more of a chance that we have to find a little more release, a little more opening, maybe a little, moving a little deeper into the pose, but we want to make sure that that doesn't take us too far. So I don't want us to get into a position. I've definitely held poses long enough to where I feel like I'm going to be stuck in it, that's just where I have to live now. We don't want to feel stuck. We don't want to feel any pinching, burning, tearing sensations that could, be leading to more harm than good. And we want to be able to still find those deep, smooth belly breaths. So if you're feeling like you have to hold the breath to hold the pose, or like the breath feels forced or stagnant, or like you can't quite breathe into that space, that's a good sign to back off, to give yourself a little bit of a break. We'll be here for about 5 more rounds of breath. Some work as you feel ready, nice and slow. We'll start to make our way up and out of our wide-legged seated forward fold. You can go ahead and start to move props off to the side. And be nice and gentle with yourself. Maybe, use the hands to assist the legs in bending and coming together. Maybe bringing the legs together and shaking them out would feel good. You would also plant the feet
a little wider than hip distance, and take some seated windshield wipers. Ooh, yeah, that feels good in the hips and in the low back. All right, so been preparing the body. Let's see what time it is. Yeah. So we've been preparing the body to get into a hip opener that is a supported frog pose, is what we're going to be getting into. But that can be intense, not going to lie. So you can just take a wide-legged child's pose. So I'll explain that one first, because that will be what we come back to. That can kind of be like our neutral. So child's pose, you may be familiar with. Move some of these. Props out of the way. So for a wide-legged child's pose, you're going to take the knees out wide, big toes to touch, and as we send the hips back, and we've created this V shape with the legs, and then we're going to fold forward, bringing the chest and head towards the ground, coming into our wide-legged child's pose. Now you can just do this on its own without any props. If you have a bolster, you could bring it in to lie the body down so that you can kind of curl up in a ball. Oh, this is so lovely. You could also take that bolster all the way underneath the hips to bring some support in the booty, and then maybe bringing in something for the head. So this is one option if you want to take this. Using props to support you in whatever way feels right for you. Now for frog pose, if you want to take frog pose with me, you will want to pad the knees. I guarantee you're going to want to pad the knees. So ways that you can do that, you can take the ends of your mat and kind of fold them up towards each other. You do want to have it wide enough. I do a little double fold here. All right, so you don't want to bring it too narrow that the knees are going to hang off. Another thing that you can do is blankets on either side. Okay, so we're still going to be on the knees. We're going to take the knees out wider. So in child's pose, we had knees wide, big toes to touch. Here we're going to have the knees wide, feet wide. So it's creating this really big opening in the legs. And then that's where I'm going to bring in kind of a cushion or a bolster or something to start to lay forward on, to start to lay the torso down. Now the difference between, in child's pose, the hips are back by the heels. For our frog pose, the hips are going to come more forward so we can kind of lie down and find opening in the hips. So for some people, the hip, the angle of the hip is going to be, 90 degrees. It's going to be straight out. That's not how my body works. So my hips are going to be above my knees. As I come forward, so you can see that you want to have the cushion on the knees. The ankles are in line with the knees. And then the pelvis, we don't really want the pelvis to drop down past the knees. That's going to create too much pressure and tension in the low back. This one is intense for me. So I know it's kind of hard to see what I'm doing, but it's basically kind of like a goddess pose lying down. So it's kind of like the knees in line with the ankles. It's kind of like this, but lying down. So I've got support here and support here, getting this really deep opening. So again, some people are gonna have that 90-degree angle here. For me, my hips are a little higher. So it's got more of a slope here, more of 45 degrees. So that's what we're working with. Take it nice and easy. You can support the head in any way that feels right. Again, if this isn't working out for you, you can take that wide leg child's pose. And from here, just feel into your heart. Maybe the heart is connected to the earth. Maybe it is connected to a prop, but hopefully it's connected to something. Hopefully the heart is able to rest on something that is connected to the ground. Same with the belly. Hands can be doing whatever feels natural, whatever feels right. You could get a stretch in the shoulders or just relax them down alongside the body. Just feel the heaviness of the body, the heaviness of gravity. Feel the support of the ground beneath you. And again, just notice where you feel centered, where you feel connected. Again, if that seems like a foreign thought to you, where in the body do you maybe feel pleasant or just neutral? I know there's a lot of sensation in this pose. Breathe through it, as long as, again, it's not going to cause any pain or injury or no pinching, burning, tearing sensations. As long as you can breathe and relax while still being present to the sensation, to the intensity. And there's a chance it'll feel uncomfortable. And uncomfortableness we can deal with. We can welcome uncomfortableness, pain, suffering. We don't really want to invite that into our practice, but just a little unease, a little uncomfortableness can be good, can be challenging, whether that's mentally, physically, emotionally, or all of the above. A few more rounds of breath here. Fantastic work. Whenever you feel ready, if you're in frog pose, slowly start to press your way up and out. If you're in child's pose, start to walk the hands back. Take your time, be nice and gentle. Slowly starting to walk the knees together.
making any movements, any counter stretches, anything that would feel awesome in the body. For me, I feel like some cat-cow would be good here. Coming into hands and knees. Knees underneath the hips, hands planted nice and wide, lengthening through the spine, and then inhale, dropping the belly, pelvis tilts up. Ooh. Gaze lifts, and exhale, rounding out, tucking the chin, tucking the tail. For any of you who practiced with me yesterday, our core kickoff, you will probably be feeling this stretch in the belly. I know my core, I'm definitely feeling it from yesterday. Beautiful work. Now when you're ready, we're going to come back into the first pose that we took, our reclined cobbler's pose. So the first time we did it, we had, that movement of drawing the knees together. This time we're just going to settle into stillness and just see kind of what we notice. So this round, I'm going to use my bolster underneath the knees. Letting the feet come to touch, knees drop open. So that bolster underneath the knees just gives me some automatic support there, some automatic lift. And actually, now that I'm in it, I feel like I want to go a little deeper than what that's going to allow me. So I'm actually going to bring my feet up onto the bolster, which this is a nice option to help kind of alleviate some pain in the low back, bringing the heels so that they're a little higher, a little more level with the hips. That just doesn't create as much arch in the low back, so that can feel really nice here. You could also, fill in that space, if there is space between the knees and the ground, with blocks, with pillows, with stacks of blankets, anything else here. But we're bringing the bottoms of the feet to touch, letting the knees drop open and just letting them hang heavy. And for me, I can feel a big difference from when we first started till now, since we've been working on, finding a little opening in the hips. I feel like my low back has released a lot more. My outer hips feel like they have a little more space to work with. So I feel a little more open here. But notice how you feel. Notice if there's any change from the beginning of your practice till now. And again, notice where you feel centered. Maybe even bringing the hands to that part. Maybe it's in the belly, maybe it's in the heart, maybe it's up in the head. Could be anywhere in the body. And it doesn't just have to be physically centered. It could be where you feel emotionally centered, mentally centered. And just taking time to make that connection, to make that observation. And we practice on our mat in a more peaceful and calm environment, hopefully, depending on your home practice situation. But we practice in this more peaceful environment in hopes that when we step off the mat and get into, if we're faced with more chaos, sometimes our inner chaos is even worse than our outer chaos. But we practice so that in those moments,
maybe we can remember our practice and we can come back to it. We can maybe stop and pause and take a few deep breaths. We can find our center. We can connect to resource. We can find a place in the body that feels connected, that feels dense, that feels pleasant, or maybe even just feels neutral. But this place to come back to, a little home base, which looks different for everyone, and everyone's journey back to home base is going to look different. Just a few more rounds of breath here. Fantastic work. When you feel ready, you can bring the hands to the outsides of the legs to gently press the knees together. And again, any movements, any counter stretches that would feel good here for me. I like to extend the legs up and maybe shake them out. You can spread out through the toes, roll out through the ankles. I just remembered that earlier today I said I was going to do screaming foot pose in class because I was snowboarding and my feet were cramping up so bad. But that did not fit into the lesson plan, so I'll have to do that. We'll have to do that another day. It sounds like a scary pose, but it feels really, really good on the feet. But with the legs extended, maybe spreading out through the toes, getting a little stretch through the feet, shaking out through the legs, or anything else, anything that you want to do to wrap up your practice, because we are getting near the end. So we're soon going to be settling into Shavasana, or our final relaxation, but I want to give you some time to explore any final movements, anything that the body is craving. For me, my thighs are asking for a stretch, a little quad stretch, so I'm gonna take that for a brief moment, but take as much time as you would like in kind of this final exploration. If you have any, final poses that the body's really craving, or anything that you like to round out your practice with, take your time, and then we'll eventually meet up in our Shavasana, or our final relaxation. And this could be any pose you'd like to take that you feel like you could surrender to. So our final Shavasana, our final relaxation, is an act of surrender and a practice of surrender, which is a very important part of life and one of the most challenging aspects as a human to do. We like to be in control, or at least think that we're in control. We like the illusion of control. Now, there are a few things in this life that we can control. The majority of things we can't. So when we learn to embrace the ability to surrender to what is, to surrender to things that we cannot change, or to surrender to things, as they are, we're able to navigate life with just a little bit more ease. So keep that in mind as you start to set up your final pose.
You could lie on the back, you could lie on the side, you could lie on your belly. You can use props to support you in any way. So I'm going to come back to the good old bolster underneath the knees. Actually going to bring in a little more. Bringing in a blanket. Well, I got pillows here. I can use pillows for my head. Wrapping up in a blanket, or even sometimes just putting a blanket over the feet or over the belly can add a little more grounding, sometimes just that weight, having the weight of something on top of you can be very comforting. So even just a big blanket or hugging a pillow. To settle in, to surrender, closing the eyes or softening the gaze, allowing the outside world to fall away. Hopefully, through your practice, you've cultivated a little sense of inner peace, of connecting to center, feeling hopefully just a little more grounded than when you started. Allowing the body to release, to relax, to surrender. Allow the mind to just settle into the peace of the present. Allow the breath to just flow naturally in and out. And while I will encourage you to take as long of a shavasana or a final relaxation as you can allow yourself, I will hold space here for us for about a minute. A moment of silence to do nothing. To remember that we are not human doings. We are human beings. So allow yourself to this moment to simply be with yourself and allow yourself to just be. Again, if you do have more time to dedicate to your shavasana, please give yourself as much time as you can.
Maybe turn off the video, turn on some nice music, and just allow yourself as much time as you can to be in this moment, knowing that this peace is always available to you. Tapping and connecting into center. When you feel ready, slowly, slowly bring some movement back into the body. If you're lying down and not already there, gently roll onto one side of the body. And wherever you find yourself, just pause for a moment and offer yourself some gratitude. Be thankful for your willingness to carve out this time, to step on your mat, to be vulnerable, to put in the work. And as you feel ready, gently making your way back up to a comfortable seat. I'll invite you to bring the hands to heart center or take any other significant, reverent, any other gesture with the hands that would feel right for you. Thank you so much for allowing me into your homes to share the magic of yoga with you. I hope you have a fantastic rest of your day. I see you, I honor you, and I bow to you. Namaste. Again, thank you so much for those of you who joined live. I do these classes donation-based. So if you are in a position where you can and would like to donate, I have left my Venmo in the description. You can, or also if you are needing this as a gift today, I'm very happy to give it to you. Share the magic of yoga with the world. Thank you again so much. If you enjoyed this video, feel free to like and comment. If you feel like someone else would enjoy it, feel free to share. I am here every Monday at 6. I also teach Sundays at noon, a core and restore. It's a little bit more active movement before settling into this nice restorative practice. So feel free to reach out with any requests for future classes, any questions. Thank you again so much. Hope to see you all again soon.